I wonder, when we look into our communities, do we see any lost people today? Do we see any people in need? Do we see anybody that has shame in their life and they're embarrassed to come to church because they can't get over the shame they feel and they don't want to be found out? Do we see anybody that has guilt that has eaten them away and has eroded in their life where their whole life is kind of messed up from the guilt they've had? Do we see anybody who needs dignity restored or hope given or peace? And do we see anybody in our community that seems lost? Here's number one. Look for the lost. In verse 34 of chapter 6, when Jesus went ashore, he saw a large crowd. He felt compassion for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. Jesus is the good shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall have no needs. And what did Jesus do with these people who were in need? He set them down in green pastures so that they could eat. This is how the good shepherd works. Now, this is exactly where a disciple like me might sigh with exasperation, or might say, or roll my eyes, or maybe even see. This is exactly the place where some preachers I know would see somebody coming they know from church, but they need a break, and they'll pretend to be on their phone. This is exactly the place where one preacher I know, he'll see somebody from church calling, and he'll just let it go to voicemail because he wants a break. This is exactly the place where a preacher would say, I just need a break, and I'm not going to make time. This is exactly what the disciples did. I'm sure. We don't hear about it. But here they are. They need a break. They're crossing the sea. And that is not at all how Jesus responds. Here Jesus is grieving from his loss, worn out from because he became human just like us. And he gets to the shore and he sees these people are in need. And he looks upon them with compassion. This is our challenge just right off the bat. Are we going to look out? Are we going to look for lost people? And are we going to have the same eyesight that Jesus has when he sees these lost people? I wonder, when we look into our communities, do we see any lost people today? Do we see any people in need? Do we see anybody that has shame in their life and they're embarrassed to come to church because they can't get over the shame they feel and they don't want to be found out? Do we see anybody that has guilt that has eaten them away and has eroded in their life where their whole life is kind of messed up from the guilt they've had? Do we see anybody who needs dignity restored or hope given or peace? And do we see anybody in our community that seems lost? You know, in the Old Testament, Moses brought the people out of Egypt in slavery. And if you don't know that story, it goes something like this. All the Israelites were in slavery in Egypt, and God said, I'm going to provide a savior to them, and I'm going to lead them out of slavery, and I'm going to take them to the promised land. On the way out of slavery, they finally get to the promised land, and Moses is not allowed to go in. God lets him see from a distance what the promised land looks like, but he said, Moses, you can't go in. And so Moses prays this prayer. He prays this prayer in Numbers chapter 27, verse 15. Moses spoke to the Lord saying, may the Lord, the God of the spirits of all flesh, appoint a man over the congregation who will go out and come in before them, and who will lead them out and bring them in, so that the congregation of the Lord will not be like sheep which have no shepherd. And God provided a man named Joshua, the Lord saves, Joshua, to lead his people into the promised land. And then centuries later, God provides another man to lead us into the spiritual promised land, to lead us into a relationship with Christ, to lead us where we are lost like sheep without a shepherd. He provides another Joshua. He provides another Lord saves. He provides Jesus Christ, his son, to lead us. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pasture. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. This is Jesus who looks out and he sees people who are lost and hurting and need, and then he shepherds them. And our challenge immediately in this story is, are we looking at lost people who need a shepherd with the same type of compassion Jesus has? I think God has created his church for times just like today. We are supposed to be ambassadors for Christ. We are supposed to be image bearers of God. Everywhere we go, we image God to somebody else. We show them what Jesus would look like and sound like and think like and respond to situations exactly as if Jesus were in our shoes. It's no joke when that little band thing went around in the 90s, what would Jesus do? That's not a joke. That's exactly what we're called to do when we go into our community. Well, do you know anybody who walks around lost with no direction, who needs the shepherd of Jesus Christ? Have you ever met anybody like that? Is that in our community? It is. And look at how Jesus responds. He saw them. He felt compassion for them. He noticed they were sheep without a shepherd. Our very first challenge in the impossible challenge of feed them is to look for the lost.